Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
And Chris in South London.
Chris, welcome. It's July.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's July, and we have much excitement. Whilst kind of Doctor Who is going to be going away from our screens, alas, we have a weighty tome to discuss in this month's club, and so that there is much joy and much stuff.
There is, and in the sweltering July heat, we have the coldness of space and the the Wheel of Ice by Stephen Baxter.
Yes.
For this month's selection. Let's talk about our show and tell for the month. What do you have this month for us, Chris?
Two things that are primarily going to be of interest to people or accessible to people in the London area. So apologies for people that are not from London. The various London boroughs are all supposed to do their own thing when it comes to libraries, and then they've realised that this is quite sort of costly. And so they've been merging their audio and the kind of archives. Which now means that if you're lucky enough to live in a London borough, and if it's part of the London Borough Consortium, which I think is most of the London boroughs are part of the Library Consortium thing, you have got a large supply of Big Finish audios you can listen to for free.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can download them onto your mobile, listen to them via a free app, and all you have to do is go and present yourself at a local library and get a library card if you don't have one already. So, big tip if you live in London. You don't even need to if you work in London. Quite often the boroughs let you join. As long as you can show proof that you're working within that borough. Yeah, that's really cool. They've got decent selection as well. I mean, they've got quite a few of the Unbound, quite a bit of the Paul McGann stuff, some of the Tom Baker ones, and I haven't checked it for kind of like a couple of weeks. I know they've been adding some more audio generally across the board, so that's really cool. The other thing I was going to say was in October in Epsom Theatre, which is sort of the Epsom Playhouse actually, and so Epsom is a kind of small village that's been kind of absorbed by London. They are doing a night of Doctor Who-ness, and I'm trying to remember who's there. It's not telling me. but yeah, sorry, I should have looked ahead on this. But yeah, Who's at the Playhouse is the name of it. It's 1st of October. I've got nothing to do with this, so this isn't a plug that I'll benefit from. The headliners are one Mr. Colin Baker and one Mr. Peter Davison.
Ooh, that'll be nice.
Yeah, so tickets £45, and it's a whole day event on Sunday the 1st of October. And it looks like tickets are still available. So they've also got Louise Jameson, John Leeson, Michael Keating, Prentice Hancock. Basically, we're going quite 70s and 80s with Davison and Baker. Yeah, and apparently you get a free autograph from each guest on the celebrity autograph panel.
Oh, that's with how much they charge at conventions for autographs. That might be worth the price of admission.
Oh, with the caveat of that doesn't include the special guest celebrities, and then they list the big ones on that list. Oh, that's sneaky. But anyway, you can go and have a little look and stuff. So Epsom Playhouse, Sunday the 1st of October. I haven't worked out what I'm doing that weekend. If you go along, I think there's a fair chance you might see me there.
Very cool. Yeah, if I was in London, I would definitely try to attend.
Yeah, it's cool because whilst I have seen Peter Davison and Colin Baker speak, I've not actually kind of met them. So that would be kind of cool. Mm-hmm. So, what do you have?
Sure. So this month it's more of a tell than a show. Last weekend was my husband and I's wedding reception.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we had gotten married just about 2 years ago after the court case went through in the States, because we didn't know how long, act now while it's available sort of thing.
Yes,
and it took us, a couple years to build up the motivation and finances to throw a good party. So that's what we ended up doing, and it was a lot of fun. It was about 100 guests or so. And it had a kind of a Doctor Who / sci-fi theme. And it was both our 2-year wedding anniversary and then also our 10-year anniversary of meeting. So that was kind of nice. We entered to I Am the Doctor in Utah by Murray Gold playing. And
Okay.
we didn't wear bow ties, so at least,
Okay.
but we had regular
Yeah.
ties. We had like a photo booth with props from the show, like the different sonic screwdrivers and scarves, and our centerpieces, were the normal flowers, but then each table was either a time ship, space station, or starship. So depending, so you had like table Deep Space Nine and the
Okay.
models in the middle of each table.
Hmm.
But it ended up looking really cool. It was funny. It was afterwards, and there were people sharing pictures from all the different centerpieces, and then different people commenting like, "Hey, I think a couple of my friends who don't know each other are at the same wedding." Because they're seeing pictures coming up on different feeds and like, oh yeah, so and so's at this table's next to you. So that was kind of funny to see happen. But it was a lot of fun. Convention planning definitely helped prepare me for
Mm.
for.
Wedding play. Yeah.
But it also feels very, very good to be on the other end of that as well. So it feels like the rest of my summer is open and free.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun, but a little bit of work too. But it was good.
Yeah. For our wedding, we tried to hire a TARDIS, but alas, we couldn't. We couldn't persuade them to kind of ship it down. However, the village we got married in is next door to the village that Tom Baker lives in.
Oh,
I didn't pop round for tea. I was kind of like busy with other things. I thought that was kind of cool because because we got married in a pub in a very British way, and we were taught by some of the bar staff when they realised that there might be a little bit of a Doctor Who connection. They said, "Yeah, he pops in here from time to time." I was like, "Oh, okay," but alas, he didn't.
no, that would have
So.
been that would have been great.
That would have been a bit freaky, yes. Yes, I'm like, no, I'm kind of nervous enough as it is about a random cameo by Tom Baker at my wedding.
Hmm.
But yeah, cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. All right, so shall we get into this book, The Wheel of Ice?
Yes, that's us.
I don't know a whole lot about Stephen Baxter. This was the first book of his that I read. Have you read any of his other work?
I've read some of his other work, including a book called Titan, which is largely set on Titan. So he didn't have to do a lot of extra research.
I think this was his only Doctor Who book he's done as well, isn't it?
Yes, kind of, because he did write a short story for one of the Big Finish short story collections. The ones that started out as that Virgin. Sorry, I said Big Finish. I meant Virgin. Virgin's sort of short story compilations. So by the time they'd become sort of Benny New Adventure compilations rather than Doctor Who ones, he wrote a short story in one of those in volume 4, if I believe rightly.
Was that the Decalogue series?
Yes, that's the word that was escaping from my brain. Of his stuff that's got nothing to do with the Doctor Who universe, I've read the NASA trilogy, which is a kind of like an alternative history that starts off with JFK narrowly surviving assassination and kind of driving NASA forward to kind of go and explore Mars and Titan and things. So that's a decent enough. I've read some of his other stuff that I found a little bit characterless, but because I also read he did a collaboration with the late great Sir Terry Pratchett called I think it was called The Long Earth. It was about a series of planet Earths that you could kind of like jump from one dimension to another, and the idea was how would man behave if there was no shortage of kind of land and resource. Is an interesting idea. I'm not quite so sure how easy it stretches to a 5-volume series. To be fair, I've only kind of listened to volume 2 because that was all that was available and I needed something to listen to whilst doing a long drive. But if there was decent radio signal where I was, I might have stopped listening. So a mixed relationship with Mr. Baxter, but I did particularly enjoy. I think Voyager is the first one of the NASA trilogy, and Moonseed, which is the last bit of the NASA trilogy, which is a giant disaster movie set in Edinburgh and other parts, and it revolves around Apollo 18, which in real life didn't happen, but in his universe it did happen, and it brought back some bad stuff. that causes problems. Yeah, it's really cool. If people have enjoyed this particular foray into Stephen Baxter, I think the NASA trilogy is a good spot, because he's also done he has quite a few other series as well. Strangely, he's never been nominated for a Hugo. He's one of these guys who's just been bouncing around for some time, where he's not been nominated for a Hugo for novels. He's been nominated for short stories. And also, despite what you might expect, given some of the things in the story, he's not Scottish. Because I checked on that, because I was going to thought, is he yet another one of these fantastic Scottish science fiction writers? Like, no, he's from Liverpool. But because spoilers, this gets very Scottish, does this book?
It does, yeah.
Unexpectedly so for a book set around Saturn.
I should mention it's structured very interestingly. It's got a whole bunch of like interludes and a really high chapter count. I think there's almost 50 chapters, and I do appreciate the shorter chapters. It does make you feel like you're making more progress as you're as you're reading through it. So it starts off with a prologue about a consciousness called Archive, which, from what we can gather, has been frozen at the center of a moon for several billion years, and it predates the origin of our own solar system. So there's going to be lots of space talk. In this one, lots of astronomy and different things brought in. But this moon, which is called Mnemosyne, which is, there's the whole story there just in the name of the moon. Mnemosyne is one of the titans that was associated with Saturn, and is kind of in
mythology, just to make it clear.
In mythology, sorry. And it is a fictional name that's been used in a lot of different science fiction series to refer to an extra moon around Saturn. So I think Baxter probably picked that deliberately as like an homage to some of those earlier stories. Our Archive is this consciousness that survived from 5 billion years ago or so, is eventually found itself orbiting Saturn, and something like 50 million years ago caused the moon that it was at the center of to explode, forming Saturn's rings.
Yes.
In that same event, it sent a little parcel or package backwards in time. More about that later.
Yes, because she somehow managed to detect a primitive intelligence on the Earth. So, and we also see as well at this point 3 words, which I think is the 3 words that the book begins with, which is resilience, remembrance, and restoration. And we will encounter those words a few times as we kind of go through. And so she's got in her, she's got the memories of the civilization that made her. But she knows that she's broken, and if she can't be fixed, she wants to return to home with a capital H. It's quite a cool enigmatic start, isn't it? Or maybe not enigmatic, but it's a good start.
Reminds me a little bit of the Star Trek Next Generation episode, The Inner Light, where you have the probe from the long lost civilization with the memories and arts and culture of the previous civilization kind of locked away within it. Kind of evoked similar comparison for me. So then the TARDIS arrives, and we're jumping ahead to, I want to say, the latter half of the 21st century.
Yes. Now, here's an interesting game. Date this. When does this happen? I mean, I think we'll go into more details probably on this as we kind of go through, because there's one or two things that make it quite tricky. But it's before Zoe's time. But
I thought you meant date this in terms of the Doctor, in terms of where it falls in season 6, because that's equally problematic.
Yes,
and we might get to that.
I have a slight theory on that one as well. But yes. Yes. Yeah.
So what we can share is that it is the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe
Yes.
at some point during season
And
6.
also, Zoe has an open pixie-like face, which reminds me of that rather ghastly description of the Fifth Doctor having an open face. It always sounded slightly horrific.
The open, pleasant face of
Yes,
Peter Davison.
yes. It's like
Yes.
it sounds gory, not pleasant. And she's also reading Brave New World, which I imagine is a authorial doff of the hat to Aldous Huxley. And the TARDIS is trying to land, having detected a relative continuum displacement zone. So, in other words, a bit of timey-wiminess, as a later Doctor would say.
It materialized where it thought that a moon was supposed to be, but it really gets caught in what are spokes of Saturn's rings. And I had to look these up because I wasn't sure if they were real or not, but they're a real thing. So within the rings of Saturn, there are different vibrational patterns and really quite beautiful looking spokes that are created every once in a while due to kind of the gravitational forces within the Saturn system itself. And the TARDIS materializes in one of these. It's almost like an eddy where it's getting buffeted around and getting slammed by different shards of ice and ice crystals. And they're observed by, I want to say she's like a 16-year-old girl,
Yeah.
a young woman named Fee, Phee.
Yeah.
And Fee is kind of watching this from watching the TARDIS having difficulties in the rings. And I want to say she's on the space scooter at this point.
She is. She's kind of cutting a bit of a Silver Surfer kind of vibe. And she's also accompanied by her robot, Mac, that speaks in a Glaswegian dialect, and it's written in Glaswegian as well. So you have to kind of sometimes a bit phonetically. So you're just having to kind of like sort of parse it in your brain.
And Mac is this robot that's pretty large. I think he was described as something like 10 meters across and has hatchways and access ports. So I'm thinking it's 30 to 40 feet across, and it's kind of a with the hatchways. I would think you could almost climb inside of it. It's that large, and it's kind of looks like a spider. It has all these limbs coming off it that have different tools and attachments, and we don't know this at the time, but we later learned that this robot Mac has an artificial intelligence and really built the space station that's surrounding the fragment of what was the once much larger moon of Saturn that became its rings, but is now this little rock of ice called Mnemosyne. And the imagery too, just the girl on the scooter kind of surfing the rings of Saturn with her large robot kind of following behind really reminded me of almost like something you'd get out of like a Miyazaki or Studio Ghibli sort of movie.
It's a striking image. It really is. So kind of back on the TARDIS, they're trying to kind of dodge the incoming ice boulders, and it turns out that the Doctor's disabled the TARDIS's automated defense system so he can repair it, which is a bit, because you're kind of like, didn't the Dominators teach him a lesson about kind of bad stuff and TARDISes and whatnot? But and so just about to be hit by a particularly large boulder, that boulder suddenly mysteriously explodes, as does another one, and Mac has arrived to kind of rescue them, and he kind of gives them a salute with his arms, and then they start kind of communicating, and he and Jamie have a kind of like a Scottish off.
We get a kind of a cool scene too, where it's the almost like the old series coming in contact with the new series, where we've had the scene before with the second Doctor where I think it's at the end of The Enemy of the World, where he opens the ship doors and it creates a vacuum and all the air starts sucking out, and they go to do the same thing here so that Mac can tie a rope around the TARDIS council so you can basically tow them to safety out of the ring system. and Jamie and Zoe have a little bit of a freak out that the Doctor's going to be opening the doors, but he does it new series style and extends the atmosphere out so that it's not a problem, and you get this cool moment where Jamie and Zoe and the Doctor are all standing at the entrance of the TARDIS looking out at Saturn and the rings, and really cool moment that you probably wouldn't have been able to get in the classic series, just given not only budget constraints, but that the TARDIS doors didn't work that way back then.
Yeah, it would be very hard to imagine this. I mean, without wanting to kind of scoot too far, there's quite a few seasons that just would not have been possible during Troughton's era for just general kind of budgetary and technology reasons. But yeah, so cool nonetheless.
The space scooter reminded me too quite a bit of the Rings of Akatan.
Yeah,
the little scooter in that.
Yeah, I try not to think of the Rings of Akatan, but yes, you're right. It's a bit Rings of Akatan.
I try to not as well.
But... yes. Yeah. Apologies if you're a big fan of the Rings of Akatan, but you're wrong. Anyway, so yeah, we see Fee kind of arrive, and she's quite surprised that she can breathe the air in the TARDIS and stuff, and she introduces herself and sort of says that her mum Jo is the mayor on the wheel, and we also start getting an insight into the kind of class system that operates on the wheel, where there are people of varying classifications, where kind of class A are kind of like the highest earners or the most intelligent, and you have kind of class B, and so Fee is a class A, and her mum, despite the fact that she's mayor, is a class B. So we will find more about the classification system later.
We also learn a little bit about how the colony's organized and how there are 6 sections to it, and the wheel is tethered to the moon with different cables that run along tracks, and it was somewhat kind of built organically, so you have different sections that are cobbled together with different bits of spaceship from all sorts of different eras leading up to this. And I want to say it's probably at least 15 to 20 years before Zoe's time, if not. We don't get a firm date as to when it's set, but I would say probably 2050 or later. I didn't realize Zoe was from the latter half of the 21st century as well. For some reason, I always thought The Wheel in Space was set more like in Vicky or Stephen's time frame, where she's thousands of years ahead of. Once I read that, I went to Wikipedia and I was like, is Stephen Baxter right about this? It's kind of fact checking him, and sure enough, it was. I always pictured Zoe as being, I guess, more intelligent and being farther along the humanity's future timeline, I guess.
Well, I mean, she was, when she was created, I mean, they were talking about a time that was 130 years or so in the future. So I guess it would have seemed quite futuristic, but for us now, it's only 80 years or so ahead. But yeah,
we get a lot of good contrast with Zoe, kind of, because in her time things aren't quite as rustic, shall we say. It's a little bit more refined, and it's not quite as corporate driven. We get a couple references in this book to the fact that the colonists have to pay for their own air, not unlike what we just saw this season in Oxygen.
Yeah. So before we kind of leave the TARDIS scene, it's also worth noting that Zoe spots a console indicator kind of going bananas, and it's suggesting that there's a presence of Pedleron particles, which apparently is something that indicates a device that has travelled through time, and so there's something has come in with Fee, it would appear, that has time travelled. You'd have thought that the Pedleron particle indicator would be kind of like going off on a fairly regular basis anyway. But okay. So anyway, we make a mental note of that.
And we should also mention too that the TARDIS won't let them leave until the relative continuum displacement zone is resolved. So they're not going to be able to use the TARDIS for any sorts of, well, back then they couldn't really do short hops anyway, but it's pretty much out of commission for the entire story, more or less.
Yeah.
The Doctor and Jamie and Zoe kind of integrate with the colonists around the wheel a little bit. They end up staying with the mayor's family, Joe's family, and Zoe sees at one point, as they're kind of getting a tour of the space station, she sees what looks like a little blue, perhaps a kid or a really short adult, running by really fast out of the corner of her eye, and she asks what that was, and the other colonists kind of ignore her or don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So she's somewhat suspicious.
Fee's Fee's little sister sees it and sort of shouts "blue doll," which kind of suggests that it's not a victim's imagination. We also have around about this time there's a kind of a council meeting that's happening with the Wheel of Ice, and so we're introduced to a few of the kind of the main players. So we've got the Mayor Joe, who's the only elected member of the council, the medical officer Dr. Sinbad Omar, Marshal Sonia Paley from International Space Command. Is that a thing in the Wheel of Space, International Space Command? It sounds like something that would have been from that era of the show.
Funnily enough, went back and watched The 10th Planet, and sure enough, the International Space Command is the organization in the 10th Planet, so they've been around at least since 1986.
Yes. Also on the council, we've got Louis Reyes from Planetary Ethics, and last and by no means least is a lady called Florian Hart, who represents Bootstrap Incorporated. It's a mining firm that's operating on the moon. So which one of those do you think is going to be a villain? And so Florian's giving him a lecture about how beryllium mining is giving them an important rocket fuel. We're also told that there's we're told a bit about how gravity works, that there's kind of gravity on the wheel, a slightly lower gravity than what we're used to on Earth. But that's created by how fast the wheel is spinning. And on the moon itself, there's a lower gravity even. And as Joe, the mayor, is wheelchair bound, is following kind of an IED incident in Venezuela. And her disability doesn't affect her when she's on the moon. It's only when she's up on the wheel. But also in this particular scene, we do have some info dumpy bits. There's a few bits of dialogue that sort of, as you know, and then characters explain to each other things they already know about how the asteroids are kind of kept away from the wheel and stuff, which I don't know, I found a bit clunky. And there's a few bits about the class structure. So again, the people are evaluated by tests, and they're housed according to their status. Doesn't sound like a nice place to live.
Yeah, it is definitely rough and on the frontier, and is evocative of some of those kind of early sci-fi, kind of more hard sci-fi stories where you have to worry about dust and you have to worry about oxygen and all those. It's a little bit more gritty than some of the later space adventures. The reference to beryllium, the mineral that they're mining, that was also the same element that was in The Wheel in Space. So Zoe's first story, it was her space station. It was the element that was used to power the X-ray laser on that station. So kind of a callback there. Did appreciate that, how of the council of 5 people or so, that 3 out of the 5 were women, and the 3 most powerful positions, so Florian's, Joe's, and then the security chief, were all female characters. That was kind of nice to see that, because I think in a lot of dramas or novels it probably wouldn't turn out that way. So this brings us to our dramatic reading for the month, where we pick up on a conversation that the Doctor and Zoe are having about early space travel, and they kind of get into a conversation about free will a little bit too. And this is from the audio, which is read by David Troughton, son of Patrick Troughton, who I want to say was David Troughton in Midnight
And Curse of Paladon.
Yep.
He's done quite a bit of sort of readings on his dad's behalf.
Not to be confused with Michael Troughton, who was also in Doctor Who in Last Christmas, I think, was the story he was in.
One of those two, I can't remember which one it is, has a son who's played cricket for England.
Oh, huh.
And no relation to the female Troughton, whose first name I forget, who's directed some of the modern series, that has no connection to the Troughton family, as far as I'm aware.
Alice Troughton.
Yes, that's it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
That's it. Anyway.
Yeah. Huh.
Zoe leaned towards the doctor. Have you heard of bootstrap ink before? In various contexts, yes. Met the chap who founded it, actually. Not a bad fellow. Let his ambitions run away with him, though. This isn't a happy place. I'd say not, Zoe. A society where children's whole lives are being sacrificed to the goals of their parents. The parents had a choice about coming out here, living like this. The children had none at all. These are the first generations to live away from the earth, Zoe. You're meeting some of the first children, like Sam and Fee and little Casey, ever to have been born away from the mother world. Born in boxes of metal or plastic or ceramic, where you have to buy every molecule of air you breathe. These, Zoe, are the first human beings ever to have been born in cages. No wonder there is conflict, then. Quite. But, Zoe, it's nothing to do with us. All we are concerned about is the relative continuum displacement zone. He glanced up at the moon. I rather think I need to take a look at what's really going on up there in the mine, and have something of a route around down here. I saw it too, you know, he murmured. Saw what? Casey's blue doll. He tapped his nose. Now, if we saw it, despite having just arrived here, it's clearly a real phenomenon. Something that can be objectively confirmed. So why the denial? Why the mystery? Is somebody running a cover-up? And what's the significance of the blue dolls anyhow? I've no idea what's going on here, not yet. But everything's connected, Zoe. The social tension, this funny business with the blue dolls, the time anomaly. Everything's connected. It always is. All you have to do is pull on a thread, and the rest unravels. This sounded a bit pompous to Zoe, and irritated her. What about Jamie and me? What threads shall we pull on? The girl Fee Laws is somehow central to this, the time-travel artifact that may be in her possession. Jamie's rather hit it off with the brother, I think, and you with Fee. I suggest you stick close to the youngsters. In this place, Zoe didn't feel young at all. She, too, had been born and raised in confined extraterrestrial environments. She ought to be used to this, but part of her longed to be away from this wheel of ice. I think I'd rather go chase another dangling thread. I want to speak to Mac again, that spider robot. He must know all about this place. Oh, yes, that sounds worthwhile to me. I hadn't thought of it. His tone was so gentle, she couldn't tell if he was being sincere or just being kind.
At this point, we get a little bit of another one of those interludes. This time, we get the backstory of Mac, the robot, and it's kind of how he built the station. We learn a little bit about the AI ethics laws that have come into play, which is interesting because they gave him a consciousness, which helped him in it. And he thought for a long time, we get these flashbacks that he thought he was a little boy on Earth with a father and a mother, but it turns out he was just a suitcase that was being carried around these places. And kind of a sad backstory, but it was nice to get that, I think.
Yeah, he's amazingly upbeat given given that all he wants to do is be a real boy. Yeah, it was a bit odd. I mean, I was like, why do you go to so much trouble of kind of persuading them to be, that he's a little kid? It does seem it seems cruel. But though this doesn't necessarily. This time period doesn't seem to be kind of like big on compassion. So we've got the TARDIS crew now kind of sort of living at Joe and Fee's house, and we've noticed as well that Fee is wearing an amulet, and Zoe reckons that this is the time traveling artifact, which does seem to be a big conclusion for her to jump to. But yeah, we're also introduced to her brother Sam, he's basically an unreconstructed teenager, isn't he? I mean, he's got kind of dim lights, loud music, calls Jamie granddad. They're having to do a room share. It's something, I guess.
The Doctor tells Jamie to keep an eye on Fee,
yes,
and to keep an eye on the amulet as well, so that it kind of separates Jamie off from the Doctor and Zoe for much of the story. It does it in a, I think, kind of a natural way where he has his own mission and it's not by circumstance. He's choosing to get involved with Sam and Fee and some of their friends.
Yeah. So before we kind of go sort of too far on some of their adventures, the youngest daughter, Casey, she's got a blue doll that she found that is kind of being kept almost as a plaything in their bed. And which is obviously it was a bit weird. Fee is she's also hearing these reports of there being attacks, and she reads some testimony from how a 16-year-old girl sort of reads testimony of kind of like a violent attack. I don't know. It's kind of like somebody 16-year-old kid reading a police report nowadays. But then again, her mum's the mayor. She finds out there's this guy whose flesh started turning blue, having been attacked by a doll. And so she goes to kind of examine Casey's doll, and then the mouth opens like a slit, revealing needle-like teeth, and it tries to grab her pendant, and she manages to fight it off. Yeah, so the dolls are weird and creepy.
Yeah, very, very much. And the doll is about the same size and height as Casey, the youngest kid, so it's quite a large doll, I guess, that comes alive too. They aren't super tiny like action figures or anything like that.
No.
They, in terms of like how Fee found out about the report, they made some mention that Jo, her mother, was really paranoid about communications and electronics, so she did hard printouts of everything and kept them in a desk drawer.
Oh yes, I'd forgotten that.
Which seems totally 60s. Like you could see, pulling open the file drawer and tossing out the folder and paging through it, and oh look, here's a police report. But it seemed a little odd that they wouldn't just do that all electronically, or that they'd even have paper in space to do that with. But
or that she'd have a secure office.
Yeah,
so if she has to have it printed out for some reason.
We learn a little bit more about the social structure on the wheel, and we find out that there's, in addition to A and B grade, there's C grade, which I think Sam has fallen into in terms of where he placed in his aptitude tests.
Yeah.
But that there's also a D grade, which is like a punishment, or people who are jailed or suspected of crimes. They have the absolute like worst of the worst jobs. But it is very much like a class system present there.
Yeah. And Sam is kind of like, he's very proud of being C. He's kind of sort of rebelling against his upbringing. Yeah, so keep an eye on Sam and his rebellion as we go through.
I was going to say they're at this point, speaking of the rebellion, Fee and Sam decide to take off and go to Enceladus to go skiing.
Yes.
And Jamie decides to accompany them, and about 15 or 16 kids all hop onto scooters and they head off towards Enceladus, and they're wearing what they call skin suits, which are very lightweight spacesuits. I was really picturing the suits that were kind of in oxygen with the invisible helmets and all of that. And it, in kind of a nod to some of the real science around it, it takes them a good 24 hours to get from the wheel to Enceladus, because they have to take into account all the orbits and everything like that, and just the size of the Saturn system is really, really large compared to Earth and the moon. They head off towards the moon, and while that's happening, all sorts of problems are happening on the wheel, where you have, I want to say, like 3 fatalities in a 24-hour period in the mining. So that crisis is kind of ramping up, and there's talk of gremlins or blue shadows on the moon that are causing some of this stuff.
The Doctor thinks that someone's kind of like hacking surveillance or kind of hiding, and his suspicion is falling on Florian. Why? It's fair to say so that there's quite a lot of gaps in this book where, kind of like, as you're saying, where kind of we skip like a day or so, because whilst kind of waiting for science to happen, we get kind of like discussions about the fishes and the geysers. I'm never sure how to pronounce that word on Enceladus.
Or Enceladus.
Enceladus. Oh, sorry. Okay. And Sam says cowabunga at one point, which obviously that's something that the kids say in whenever this is set. They do quite a bit of kind of like exploration of the ice moon. I'm not going to dare to say its name. And then once everyone's set up camp, Jamie asks Fee about the amulet, which takes us off on a bit of an unexpected interlude.
It does, yeah. They kind of go through the history of the amulet and how it was picked up by a dinosaur, and the dinosaur was destroyed or killed by I think a meteor or something, and it became a fossilized claw. And jumping forward to, I think it was 1890, and the opening of the London Underground, and that's where the amulet first came into the possession of the Joe and Fee's family, where it kind of was passed down from mother to daughter on their 16th birthday. And it just a random tradition, and it kind of shows, we get little slices of like 1890 and then 1930 and the first transmission of television.
Yes, a Black Orchid reference. Because it's not a TV, they refer to it as a televisor. From the John Logie Baird Corporation. And apparently the next play that they're considering doing at the BBC is Black Orchid, which should be interesting. Also, 1890 as well, there's a Tons of Wing Chiang shout-out. Is Josephine Laws, because all of these girls are called Joe or Josephine or some derivation thereof. The Victorian one thinks that it's a fake made by Lee Head Sen Chang, who is one of the from Talons of Ung Chiang. Also, she notices that every 9 and a bit years it lights up like an Edison light bulb briefly, and so when we kind of move forward to the time of the moon landing. We've got a 16-year-old Joss being kind of bored by all of the Apollo moon landing stuff, and her mum says that UNIT have been looking into the fossil, and then we have another curiously unspecified time period where Joe Laws, presumably the Joe Laws who is the mayor, is waiting to get into her dad's flying car. Was it a Volkswagen Dragonfly or something? And preparing to kind of go off to army training camp and then probably a tour of action in Venezuela. And someone said, "Oh, watch out for the IEDs." I was like, "Oh, yeah, great, subtle." But I'm wondering, when is this happening? This bit with the flying car. Is it about now?
Yeah, it is. It'll be around 2020 or so, I think.
Or earlier, possibly. Or 2005. Given that we seem to be vaguely 30 or 35 year gaps So which makes you kind of think, well, obviously this is set in the Doctor Who version of history. Which makes me think that the book is probably set in 2040 or something. But it's never specified. So in the Doctor Who universe, they had flying cars by now, and we don't. Sadness.
We sort of got that in. Well, I was going to say Enemy of the World. You had I think that might have just been a helicopter.
Yeah,
I'm thinking the hovercraft in that.
Yeah, because isn't that set in 2018? Enemy of the World.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the amulet glowing every 9 years or so. That happens. They've figured out that it happens 3 times a year based on Saturn's orbit. So,
which seems like a random thing for them to figure out. Because and then they're saying, "Oh, there's a family legend. It's got something to do with Saturn." It's like, no, it's a family crackpot theory that is actually quite correct, but there's no evidence. Mm-hmm. We do have a bit of jumping to conclusions in this book when the narrative suits it.
We do, yeah, quite a bit. So after that story, so Jamie is camping out on an ice vent on Enceladus, and they've gone skiing and through the cracks and stuff. And there's kind of a cool moment where, and this is really happening. So Cassini's the spacecraft we have in orbit around Saturn right now was able to verify that at the south pole of Enceladus there is a liquid ocean which is frozen over and is venting bits into space. And unfortunately they're camping on one of these geysers.
Yes.
So you have this dramatic slow motion scene where the ground around Fee is starting to swell up like a boil and is getting ready to burst, and Jamie's running to save her in the low gravity, and he jumps right at the right time and he grabs her out of the way, and they go off spinning, and the geyser erupts and it starts snowing around them, and it's kind of a cool sequence. But their little jaunt on the moon is done, and they have to go back to the wheel, and that's where they learn that someone blew up a mining machine, which they think is an act of sabotage or something like that. And I should mention too that a lot of what happens in this book happens off screen. Yes. So we hear about all these things happening, but they're not ever told in the narrative. So in that sense, it very much felt like a 60s story where they get the phone call, oh, such and such is under attack, but we never we get the characters hearing about events or reacting to events.
Yeah. Which is kind of like shown quite well by the very next scene. We spent quite a bit of time talking about coffee at the Law's residence, and so whilst the Doctor's kind of sorting out his breakfast arrangements, Sonia then kind of comes in and shows on the equivalent of like an iPad that this mining machine has been blown up over an utility, and that the police are now kettling the residents of Res 3 that's suspected of being troublemakers. So, in other words, the kids, and that includes the returnees from the moon, that's a name I can't pronounce. But yeah, kettling, is that a term that you'd encountered before?
No, it isn't. The kind of like a lockdown or isolation.
Yeah. It's a very kind of. It was kind of coming into play around about the time that this book was being written. It's kind of like a police tactic of just basically kind of like surrounding and keeping people in an area, which the police were doing for kind of like for protesters, sort of in various bits of London. Yeah, I don't know if they do it. It doesn't seem to get as much publicity as it did back then. I don't really know too much about it. Anyway, I won't get us into any trouble on that one. But yeah, so there's quite a bit of kettling going on, and and we've got people from the moon. But Jamie is released under basically some kind of like legal loophole because he's not known on the moon, on the wheel, pardon me. So therefore the laws don't quite apply to him. And he has a chat with the Doctor and sort of mentions what he's learned about the amulet.
Back on the wheel, Zoe is finds out that Mac has saved data about the rings of Saturn for quite some time, as long as he was building the wheel. So she goes back and starts searching for anomalies in the data, and I think eventually comes to the conclusion that the explosion that caused the ring systems is somehow connected to the moon that they're currently, or the fragment of the moon that they're currently orbiting. So there's some sort of connection there. And then Jamie, as you mentioned, he gets freed through that legal loophole.
Yes.
And he tells the Doctor, fills the Doctor in about the history of the amulet, and the Doctor remarks that it's a time lure, and it's something that is unethical, and that Time Lords frown upon because you're potentially manipulating the history of an entire other planet to kind of suit your needs. And it seemed a little bit hypocritical to me, I guess, because you see that happening. And it's basically the bootstrap paradox, right? Because you have the name of the corporation even named Bootstrap Inc. is kind of a not so subtle nod to that whole concept, but it's the same sort of thing that we saw in Blink, with sending messages back to yourself, or River carving coordinates into a cliff face, getting the Doctor to appear at a time and place to rescue her. So it happened.
Yeah. Also, I'm not going to go too much into it for spoilers, but also this season of Doctor Who as well. There's there's an episode that wouldn't happen if it wasn't for something like that the Doctor causes. So he's being hypocritical.
It seems a little bit weird to me too, because I think even without Archive sending the amulet back in time, Saturn would have still been a draw, I think, for humanity, and it was only this particular family that even did anything with the amulet to begin with. So the mining corporation, all of that would have happened with or without Archive sending the amulet back in time. So I tried not to think too much about that particular plot point. We do get a couple mentions too about the Silurians and how that was they were the intelligence that was first sensed by Archive, and way back, millions and millions of years ago, and who knows if the Ice Warriors were sensed at some point as well.
Potentially, certainly the Ice Warriors get mentioned, but not quite in that context. But yeah, so the Doctor's quite keen to kind of go and inspect this blown up mining vehicle, and whereas Jamie wants to kind of look after the kids, so he kind of sneaks back to kind of go and join them. And when the Doctor and Zoe reach the wreck, Florian Hart has turned up, being a pantomime villain. And you also get Louis Ray has appeared, and he's representing the rights of the AI in the machine, which is kind of cool. Louis Ray, he has an Isaac Asimov character vibe about him. I think he does feel like he's wandered in from an Isaac Asimov novel.
Yeah, I was getting that, and a little bit of Carl Sagan too, just in how he would kind of stop and opine about different things and go off on little tangents.
Yes, yeah. And Fee somehow or other breaks into the kettling around the back. How you do that with organised policing and stuff? Maybe it's not quite as well organised as it is, but as it was claimed. But yeah, so she manages to find a way to get in round the back, and as has Jamie, and she and sort of they're all kind of like plotting a breakout, but it doesn't seem too hard. If you can sneak into somewhere, you can probably sneak out fairly easily, I'd have thought. But hey ho. And in the wrecked machine, the Doctor finds the body of a blue doll, and it doesn't have any kind of like organs inside. It's all just entirely kind of plastic.
The blue doll that was in the drill was shot by a blaster, and it was done as some sort of almost like a cover up, where the explosion was kind of a secondary thing to maybe deliberately take out the mining equipment and to cover up some of the evidence that was there. And at that point, Jamie and the 16 or so teenagers break out from the quarantine section, or the section that was on lockdown, and they all decide to head, instead of Enceladus, to Titan.
And they do this off screen.
Yes.
Pretty much. It's like, this sounds like a cool scene, but okay, we're not allowed to see it. Right, okay. Sorry. So, Florian is kind of, she's kind of having a row with Sonia about the most appropriate response, because I think Florian would be quite happy nuked a lot of them. And we then skip a day, because that's what the plot demands or something. Because by this point, everyone's heading down to the moon on a lift, sort of like the grown-ups. So we've got kind of Doctor, Sonia, Florian, Joe, and we then get quite a cool explanation about the gravity, about how as the moon, as you kind of go through on the lift to the moon, the lift actually kind of flips round so that so that you don't arrive upside down, and it's quite a nice kind of cool sequence. And so we then kind of once we're at the moon, sort of Sonia suddenly sees a doll and kind of shoots at it, but the doll kind of sort of manages to escape, and the Doctor kind of pursues it. And Zoe and Sinbad follow, and because the Doctor, whilst he's been running along through these kind of like miney shaft things in the moon, the Doctor's managed to make chalk outlines of the arrows in which he's heading in, whilst running, which I think that takes a lot of coordination. I'm not too sure I could do that at the same time. Then Zoe's realising that the group is being kind of split up. Yes, it's just them two on their own, Zoe and Sinbad. And they find themselves in a chamber of blue dolls, and all the blue dolls are dormant. But then they start to kind of like slowly waken. One touches Zoe, and then they start to try and kind of swarm all over her until kind of Sinbad drags her away. But Sinbad then notices that they look an awful lot like Casey, and then they find they stumble across a larger chamber with kind of clumps of dolls all kind of huddled together, and it's described as being like bats roosting,
or tetraps.
Oh,
yeah. Did I have to?
yeah. All like tetraps. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, and the Doctor's here as well. And so is the kind of like the laser lit doll, and the baby dolls are doing kind of like almost like a mourning ritual for the doll, for the one that's been hit, and then the dolls start to turn, and they start to turn on Sinbad, and they're kind of like they're just basically they've surrounded him, and they're not touching him, but they're just kind of surrounded him. And then Florian Hart rocks up, and as is her way, she starts shooting things because that's what she does, and so the dolls suddenly now start attacking Sinbad. And Zoe and the Doctor manage to escape, but as they're running past, Zoe sees Sinbad's skin starting to turn blue.
Yeah, he's kind of killed or overrun as and it gets infected. And I don't know if it turns him into a doll himself, or he just dies with like partially converted over, or what the deal is. But yeah, it's really kind of a creepy scene.
Yeah.
And Zoe, as she was going in, she's kind of building a 3D mental map of the interior of all the mine, and it kind of saying it's kind of like Swiss cheese in terms of. So she's able to lead the Doctor out relatively quickly to escape. At that point, we get we jump back to Titan.
Which looks like Scotland.
Yeah.
Because Titan looks like Scotland, apparently.
We get Jamie, descending through the clouds, and you get a lot of details about Titan's the only other place in the solar system where there's rain, for example. So we get, the scene of rain happening, except it's like raining oil almost. The kind of the hydrocarbons that are in the lakes and stuff on Titan, and kind of goes into Jaws a little bit. And you have a bunch of scooters kind of floating on top of some of the hydrocarbon lakes, and you have this kind of a like oil shark that comes up and tries to start eating people.
It does feel like a bit of a insert action sequence here, but yeah, I mean it's good, it's fun. I mean, JB kind of goes in and does a bit of heroicness and sort of rescues Di and Sanjay, who are kind of part of the rebel gang. Basically, Jamie's stuff is a series of disaster movies. I think that's about to say about his storyline.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on them and expect all your favourite disaster movie cliches to make appearances.
Back on the wheel, the Doctor and Zoe managed to bring the body of the blue doll that had done or was involved in the sabotage or was shot at the drill. They start doing an autopsy on the alien they brought.
Yeah, and also the Doctor implies that he was at Roswell, which makes me wonder how many versions of the Doctor were at Roswell. Because because this is the first time in his timeline I remember it, but I know subsequent ones have been or have strongly hinted. But yeah.
We know that the aliens in Roswell were the Tizoon Confederacy.
Yes, exactly. And so the Doctors concluded that the dolls are modelled on the very first thing that they saw. So in other words, Casey. And there's quite a cool bit about how the interior of the dolls have been designed in a highly distributed way. So there's no equivalent of a heart or a brain or even blood supply, which is why they're so flexible and kind of like all the various bits can operate on their own, which will become relevant later.
I was picturing like blue tinted Autons, really.
Yeah.
In terms of like being all plasticky and arms and limbs functioning on their own.
But it's described in a better way with the distributed systems and everything, because I have an IT background, but it's a way that makes more sense than I've ever seen with the Autons. Because it is Stephen Baxter approaches this from kind of like an engineering point of view, which I found quite interesting. Though the Doctor reckons that there must be like a central mind driving the dolls. Whilst he's right, I don't quite understand how he jumps to that conclusion, because surely if we've got distributed systems, you could also have distributed intelligence, or you could have each of them having their own separate... I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, so he reckons that they must kind of head on back to the moon to kind of go and do some more exploring.
And back on Titan,
oh yes,
we get a scene where they're.
Why did we do this? Okay, sorry.
Well, I'm sure Stephen Baxter wants to give us the full, kind of the Martian experience.
Yeah. When was the Martian book published? Was it before this or not?
I think it was around the same
time.
Yeah,
okay, so this might have just been two ideas that came, but basically we've got some extreme recycling happening. So as the book puts it, there's personal business goes into one end of the process, and we have biscuits and soup at the other. Yay! Lovely. Also, the colony has been named Tartarus, which is kind of part of hell in Greek mythology, and that's Sam's choice. And it said that suggests that Sam's really intelligent and is downplaying his seagraves. So it also suggests he's a bit of a ridiculous show-off.
Yeah, and his colony is quickly going the way of Lord of the Flies.
Yes.
With the food processor breaking down, and there's dissension and leadership challenges within the ranks, and his position within the group is, everyone's kind of realizing that this isn't a lot of fun, especially when their recycling processor breaks down. And then we cut back to the Doctor and a couple of others from the Wheel going down, or back down to do a second exhibition out on the moon. And this time they're more heavily armed too.
Yeah.
And at this point, we get a nice little, well, I don't know if it's nice, but we learn a little bit more about Florian's past, and that her father invented the tea-mat.
Yes.
And that's where the continuity error comes in for me with where this is set in season 6, because earlier in the book, they reference that the Doctor is going to turn on the HADS soon, the Hostile Action Displacement System, which we see...
They don't name it. They don't call it HADS. It's implied it's the same thing, but he's got it offline for repair.
Yeah, which makes me think that this is set just previous to the invasion. But then we get the references to T-Mat and the Ice Warriors, which would mean it was set after Seeds of Death. So I gave up trying to figure out where in Series 6 it's placed.
And it's set after the Mind Robber as well.
Yes.
So, in my mind, I think this happens just before the Space Pirates.
Yeah, I could see
essentially, which kind of gives some extra resonance to the last section of the book, but we'll go into that later. Yeah, so we've heard that Florian came from riches, but then her dad became penniless because T-Mat had whoopsies. Zoe and the Doctor they've gone off, accompanied by 2 bootstrap guards. And Zoe has got Mac to start manipulating a flag. There's all these various kind of propaganda flags, and she's kind of taken one down. And basically, these are just very light screens that you can get to show the message of your choice. And for some reason, it's started off showing patterns like the rings of Saturn. I can't remember quite why she decides to go on that. It appears to be a bit of a random choice from memory. But one of the doll mimics it and sort of starts putting chalk on his chest, sort of the chalk that the Doctor left behind for the previous visit. And some of the others have kind of got ring patterns scratched into their skin, or they've painted on themselves using some kind of purple fluid. And the fuse patterns are more spirally. It kind of feels very Maori, sort of like New Zealand. The Doctor reckons that they're trying to cultivate their own consciousness. And at this point, a different unmarked doll arrives, and he points at himself and points at the number, sort of makes it number 1, signaling that he was the first doll. And we then see, I think it's one of my favourite sections of the book, which is the backstory of First. And it starts off with it sort of suddenly feeling alive and just gaining consciousness, and then a doll appears next to him and wakes up, and this second doll is kind of having a bit of a crisis, and so the first doll says, "I am first, and I will help you," and it's just trying to help. And there's a wall of light that appears saying "Welcome," and then resilience, remembrance, restoration, and then I am archive. And we then have a little jump forward, and First is being sent on missions to kind of go and steal the technology of what are referred to as the others, so in other words, the humans. And he encounters a smaller other unarmed that calls it Dolly, so Casey. And then he returns to speak to Archive, who tells First that he made him. And Archive's a bit of a downer. Archive comes out with this awful line of, "The agony of self-knowing serves no purpose." Archive doesn't know how to motivate people. It's a terrible boss. And Archive kind of tells First to go and retrieve the lure, and reminds First that he serves not Archive, but serves the mission. We then have another check-in with Archive and First immediately after the kind of like the moon shootout, or shortly after the moon shootout. And Archive is kind of like unsympathetic, saying that I am a made thing, you are a made thing of a made thing, you are less than zero.
We also get the hint that Archive is developing a new form of the dolls, one that'll be bigger and stronger and able to carry out its mission.
Yes.
So the dolls were really like version 1.0.
Yeah.
So we get a little hint of that.
Yeah.
And while that's happening, we get word that throughout all this time, Florian hasn't shut down the drilling operation, and that's just been continuing all this has been happening.
Yeah.
And it reaches the core of the moon, which causes a bit of a panic, and all the dolls who they were just now starting to be able to communicate with leave the chamber, and there's kind of a rush for the exits.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to Titan for more adventures with Jamie and the teens.
Yes.
And
Teen Titan. Teen Titan.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's what they should have.
That's what they should have called the book. They should have called the book Teen Titan.
That would have.
DC would have sued, but it'd been great.
So now it's time for another disaster movie, and this time it's the cryovolcano. So we get a giant volcano made of ice, which is a thing on Titan. There are cryovolcanoes that have been found there, and rather than spewing lava, it's spewing ice from the mantle, because the temperature is like something like 200 below zero. Ice very much has like the properties of rock on Titan, so we have this kind of liquid cryovolcano, and Sam, so the eldest brother, the son of the mayor, his suit gets punctured by some of the ash that's getting spewed out from the volcano, and there's lots of little pinpricks where his suit is able to retain its oxygen, but the temperature level is fluctuating wildly. Jamie is able to have contact with the doctor through his headset throughout most of this, and the doctor gives him a warning to basically submerge Sam in something that's warmer than the surrounding air. So his solution is to wait it out in the lava flow itself. So you have this imagery of Jamie taking Sam, who's pretty much unconscious by this point, and they descend into the lava, which is really ice lava. And it's kind of like running water, but it's thicker and slower, kind of like molasses.
Yeah.
And Sam had a lifeline to Louis, the planetary ethics guy, up on the wheel, so they were able to dispatch a rescue ship to pick up the group on Titan. So they're kind of their rebellion, their camping trip is over at this point.
Back on the moon, Zoe and the Doctor are kind of running as they realise that they're being kind of chased not by blue dolls but by blue soldiers that are seemingly being based on Sinbad. And then just as they think that they're kind of done for, Mac and Sonia's police troops kind of like burst in through some ice walls. And the troops start kind of shooting at the blue soldiers, and it just ends up with these kind of disembodied body parts kind of going after them, like arms crawling along and headless corpses running towards them. And so the only thing that they can do is blow up the walls to block progress. And there's also a scene where one of Sonia's marshals sort of ends up sort of accidentally sort of sacrificing herself to kind of like save the doctor. Yeah, and sort of Sonia sort of insists that the doctor remembers her name because she was a volunteer. I mean, that was quite a kind of good little moment. And elsewhere on the moon, we've got blue soldiers emerging from kind of every nook and cranny, and they're starting to make for the cables.
And Jamie and the rest of those that were on Titan, they're on a transport heading back to the wheel, and they can look down at the moon and they can notice what appears to be like a blue stain spreading across the surface of the moon, but it's the blue soldiers. There are so many of them, and they're kind of rushing up. I don't know if you listeners may have some of the sequences in what was that Brad Pitt zombie movie?
Oh, World War Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of the images of the rush of people kind of creating almost like a mountain to reach out to try and I got some of that same sort of imagery as they started climbing the cables to try and reach the wheel of ice It's kind of a cool sequence.
Yeah.
And some of them make it up the elevator cables before they're cut, including one of the humans who got infected.
Yeah, Sinbad. Yeah.
At this point, too, we get another one of those interludes where we kind of learn more about Archive. It's called Home.
Yeah.
And we learn that Archive was going to be like a art and science and culture repository, searching for a world to recreate the life, of its makers on. And it was equipped with like what they call a womb, which is kind of like a 3D printer. So the Archive's original purpose was to find an empty planet and basically recreate this lost society, almost like I want to say like a Disney Super Marionation sort of automaton sort of world. It was its original programming, but it got caught in the blast that destroyed the previous solar systems that it was a part of, and so its programming was compromised, and it got trapped in the core of the moon, and so we get a little bit more there. So all the cables have been cut, so the wheel is kind of off on its own now. It's no longer tethered to the moon itself. But then you have a group of 4, so the Doctor, Zoe, Fee, and the security chief, Sonia Paley. They head down in a transport, and this part felt really realistic to me because they stop for a moment when they come across some of the colonists that have been killed to remove their dog tags and to take skin samples for DNA identification. So they take a moment to do that and to honor all the people that have kind of died as part of this. And at that point, they encounter the first, and they give him the amulet.
Yeah.
So that part of the bootstrap paradox is completed, and they end up going deeper into the nest of the blue dolls. Really,
yes. That sounds like an awesome title for. That sounds like a better Nest of the Blue Dolls. That would have also been a good title for this. We also have as well the interesting revelation that the wheel recycle corpses. When you die, they still use your body, but they're deciding for some of these infected bodies that they're not going to take the risk.
We saw that in Smile this season too. That same concept of the recycling of the dead.
Yeah.
And Florian's still around too at this point, and she decides to take a small team down to the surface. Louis decides to accompany her, and she's going down to the surface of the moon with a bunch of the guards from the Bootstrap Corporation.
Yeah.
And where she has an old missile on the moon's surface.
Yeah.
And a kind of a nod back to the 10th planet again.
Yeah.
It's one of the rockets from that story, and it has is it the Z-bomb?
Yes.
Is that yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the same kind of planet-killing weapon that was... Is that how Mondas was destroyed? One of the...
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
And also she's not quite forged paperwork, but we later learned that she's made the paperwork for this so loose and flexible, because she's ostensibly gone down there for site assessment for kind of like how much repairs need to be done. But Florian knows how to play the rules, or how to operate within not the spirit of the rules, but sort of follow them in such a way that she can do what she wants to. So the first is sort of leads the Doctor to this kind of like basically this hoard of equipment. At first, you kind of feel that it's like nesting, where they've kind of stolen things from left, right, and centre. And then the Doctor realises that it's kind of like a garbled attempt at a time machine, using mirrors to send images faster than the speed of light. TARDIS had probably detected a trial run, and then the Doctor starts thinking that this kind of time machine thing could possibly blow up Saturn, given how much damage was caused to the moon. And we then go into a larger chamber, and they see first communing with something shapeless and worn. It's always hard to imagine a shapeless thing, and signals start appearing on the flags, and the Doctor then starts handing out a shard of the TARDIS telepathic circuit. He just keeps on him reasons. Zoe then sees an image of an ark and an archive, which makes the Doctor guess that the name is Archive of a K, which seems very convenient. And also, surely that kind of pun, for want of a better word, wouldn't necessarily work in Archive's own language.
Yeah, that was a little. I just chalked that one up to the TARDIS translation matrix. And,
being cheesy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the Doctor is able to communicate with Archive, and he's confirms that it's very old, that it's in pain, and that the level of information is just almost too much to keep track of. And it's at this point that we start getting violent ice quakes happening throughout the mining system, and it's causing a lot of destabilization of the mine. And we also learn that Mac's memory of the Z-bomb was erased. Zoe's able to kind of help Mac figure out how Florian could have had this kind of upper sleeve the whole time.
Yeah.
Just in case something went wrong with the colony. And the Doctor kind of tricks Florian, who's, on the surface now. There's a team led by Jamie, and they have weapons that have been kind of modified to only do a stun setting.
Yeah.
But as part of the reason for being able to communicate with Archive, they had to go through like a liquid medium. So there was a scene earlier where Jamie is kind of melting a bunch of water above the chamber that they're in, and the Doctor kind of tricks Florian and is able to get the ice water to dump on her and envelop her, really. And Jamie's also able to shut down the Z-bomb from going off with, seconds to spare.
Yeah. Blue wire, red wire, blue wire, red wire. Yep. It's like, oh, great. And we also have dodgeball playing an unexpected part, as Florian's guards are about to start shooting at them until some of them remember that they've played dodgeball with Sam. And so the healing power of dodgeball stops the violent shootout.
And we do get the Doctor. He was exposed to the vacuum of space for like 30 minutes or so, but he wasn't even blinded, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. His eyes shut throughout.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And then we cut to another council meeting, this time discussing agenda items. Because, as we've learnt from Star Wars, there's nothing more thrilling than trade agreements or discussions with agenda items. And they've got now... This is the meeting for the new council running the Wheel of Ice, and they've got representatives of all the classifications. The wheel is being rebuilt. Yes, you may suspect that the whole host of scenes have been skipped. They haven't, but and there's a reference to an absent friend, and then the Doctor comes in eating popcorn. Yeah, okay. And we're also told that the new colony is based on the robust British parliamentary system and the American principles of freedom. 2011. Different times.
Yeah.
There's also some kind of ethical fun about what they do with Archive, and then Mac decides he wants to go. Oh dear, how can I say this? He wants to go off and mine Uranus and help Archive get some terranium from there, so that she can go home. And Mac is then presented with some missing letters home from his mum. And also, because when we talk about the history of the stars, it was being explained to Jamie, or maybe we skipped that bit. But anyway, so Jamie had a bit of a brief astronomy lesson, sort of fairly early on in the book, and he was told that Uranus it was originally going to be called after King George, not the King George that he was fighting, but still a King George, and he kind of got really upset about the idea that Mac was going to be going off around a planet that had at one point been named after an English king. and then the TARDIS crew decide to kind of just sort of leave them to it and kind of go off without any goodbyes, because goodbyes lead to questions.
And the colonists end with a freedom march that they do throughout the rebuilt wheel, and then the TARDIS crew kind of nips off without any goodbyes, and
yeah,
that's the story.
And the book actually closes with the TARDIS crew with an alarm going off, and Zoe seeing something shocking on the scanner, but we don't know what. So what's that going into?
And that was exactly how the book began too, with the three of them kind of running from different places into the console room. So it kind of ended as it began.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it implies that their adventures continue. It also implies they don't have a breather in between adventures. But yeah, so maybe she was so shocked because she realised they were about to do the Space Pirates. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So what do you make of this then?
I actually liked this one
a
fair amount. I liked how it was kind of a little bit slower paced in that it was kind of a slice of life sort of story where you do have those kind of. I know last month I was like, well, why doesn't Barbara just stop and take in the moon? and here we have.
There's a lot of taking in the moon, isn't there? Yes.
And here we have the opposite end of that, where they take everything in for quite a bit of time, and maybe there's not quite as much plot, but that's I tend to, those are the types of stories I tend to really enjoy. I like the Star Trek novels where it feels like you're living aboard the Enterprise sort of thing, and I get that kind of feeling a little bit here. I thought his characterizations of the Doctor and Jamie and Zoe were all really spot on. I loved Zoe's reactions to everything and how she was slightly annoyed at it. It's that, I really enjoy my iPhone sort of thing, but now I'm back in a time when I have to deal with analog tapes and that sort of. You get that kind of thing. And I was also really glad that Mac ended up living, because I was so convinced that Baxter was going to kill the robot off in like a self-sacrifice type situation.
Well, I thought with some timey-wiminess that Mac was going to end up having been named after Jamie. So no, so I was half expecting that there was going to be some McCrimmon connection, but yeah.
Well, what did you think of this one?
There were some points where, I mean, I can see that he's kind of he's giving a sense of the world and everything, but I did find it frustrating that there were quite a few potentially interesting scenes happening kind of like off screen. I was very glad for the blue dolls. Because, I mean, those were driving me through, and I have to say there were some times where I found it a bit of a slog. Because it did remind me, and I've forgotten which one it was, there was another Baxter book that I read that I remember just giving up on because I just found it such a slog. Because for me, the world does seem quite well put together, but then there's things like, let's all go off skiing. And I'm like, hang on, if we're having this reinforcement of the kind of like, there's a rigid class system and it's all terrible and everything, but yeah, everyone can kind of go off to kind of go and hang out on an ice moon. It does seem, I don't know. There did seem to be a little bit of kind of gaps, because I mean, I was expecting it to be. At one point, I was expecting to kind of go down a kind of like a grim political satire kind of thing. But yeah, it was frustrating because like the blue dolls are so good, they're so creepy, it's fantastic, and also the science is well thought out. But it's just, I think a few of the characters, like for me, it doesn't feel like any of the characters are people. Really, I mean, quite a lot of them are there to kind of spout out views. Especially Florian, but also Louis Reyes, and also I thought it was a shame that kind of, with the exception of Louis Reyes, the only sort of character of colour and also the only gay character, Sinbad, gets killed off. Which is a little bit unfortunate, but yeah. I wish that I could like it more. I think that's my thing. So
Yeah, I would agree with you that I think the characterization, I think it was a lot better for the main cast, and I think the guest cast was very much, oh, this person fulfills this role. This person's kind of like the quote unquote person from the ministry. That's you get quite a bit of that. I did like how I felt the story was a little bit of a contrast of two different AIs in Mac and in Archive, and how you had kind of different outcomes based on how their programming was set up. So I thought that was clever. You probably could have done a little bit more to pull that out into make it more
explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many other things that are just being kind of like hammered home. Because because quite a few of the things are not particularly subtle about, like the class system and stuff, and you kind of get the sense that he thinks he might be kind of sort of dropping hints, but there's a few points where it's like, well, it's abundantly clear. But about things like the artifact.
I did notice how, especially in the early chapters, he put in a lot of different references, and that's where we get, I think, a lot of the references to the different season 6 stories. And I felt that was him a little bit trying to establish his fan credentials up front, and that seemed a little obvious.
And we even get a reference to the Sunmakers. You don't need to have a reference to the Sunmakers in this. Yeah, I mean, though I think I can understand how you could fall into that trap as a recognised author to sort of say, look, I'm not doing this for a quick buck. I can't imagine you make a quick buck from a Doctor Who book. Yeah, to show that he is a real fan. But yeah.
So how would you rate this one then?
I have been. If it wasn't for the Blue Dolls and thing, I would put it good deal lower than what I am going to do. I am going to put it a very frustrated 6.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because there are some times where we have so much of the kind of like the Basil exposition kind of stuff, and just dear. There's a potential of a very good story in here, but it's not quite there. But anyway,
do you think it would make a good episode of the series, or not? That's fine.
No, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it would. I don't think it would make a bad. I think it would be hard to do all the interludes. It would be tricky to do all like the 1890s stuff and all the other and the scenes from Archive's point of view, and also especially the scene from First's point of view. I think that would be very hard to do on the TV. I think it might make a better Big Finish play.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, for me, I was originally going to give this one a really, really high score, but I've since revised it slightly. But I'm still going to give it, for me, it's an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I thought it had a good balance of science and storytelling. And I really appreciated how the science was just spot on, because that for me is can really take me out of the story. And you could tell that that Baxter follows the Cassini mission maybe on Twitter, very closely, because the references to bunch up points in the rings and the debris becoming, several kilometers thick at different points, and the spokes in the rings. I mean, that's all true. All the details about Saturn, or about Titan and Enceladus minus the sharks, is all true.
The sharks could be there. We've just not seen them yet. Yeah,
they could be.
Yeah. It could be one of these things that NASA's keeping secret from us.
Yeah. I did dock it a few points, partially because of the pacing. It seemed kind of languid, and I like I said, I like that kind of slice of life approach, but even for me, that felt a bit slow. Very 60s Doctor Who in that regard, and dare I say, maybe akin to the Space Pirates in terms of pacing. But I thought the characterization, at least for the leads, was really well done. Everyone had something to do, and it was well balanced in that respect. I also probably docked it a little bit just for the choice of story. While I thought like the blue dolls and all of that was really creepy and effective. I just think to myself, okay, you have all of time and space to play with, and you decide to go with a story about Archive, sending a necklace back to itself. It just, I don't know that I would have told that sort of story. Maybe tell something a little bit more on the space opera side of things with the Empire or the Federation, one of those types of things. But yeah, I can't fault it too much. But it just it did hit quite a few of my sweet spots in terms of things I'm interested in. But the execution, I think, was a little off.
I suddenly just remembered a bit that I hadn't spoken about, which was the Krakus bedtime story. That Zoe starts kind of reading at one point when she's trying to calm down Casey. So that's got nothing to do with anything that you've just been saying. But yeah, I was just it's odd. And so Casey starts wearing a superhero cape. I think that's kind of emblematic in a way because that feels such a shoehorn. I'll just as the point that you were making about the continuity, to sort of say, look, I'm a fan. I've seen the Mind Rubber. I was like, yeah, okay. That's yeah.
So that's fine. I mean, there's been other books that you've liked more than I have.
Oh yeah. I felt that you would have enjoyed this a lot more than I did. As I was kind of thinking today when I was kind of at the grade, I thought, I was confident that you were going to rank this a lot higher than I was. But that's great. That's good. Yep. We can have a conversation about it. It's cool.
For sure.
Yes.
So anything else you want to say about this one before we move on to listener mail and feedback?
No, I think we're good.
So we don't have any emails this month, but we do have a few tweets to mention. Jeff on Twitter thanked us for the reminder to leave feedback on iTunes, and he let us know that a review was forthcoming. So
cool.
Thank you, Jeff, for that. We got another from Taroja, who we got a email from in a previous episode. They mentioned that they had fond memories of the Face of the Enemy novel, enough that they wanted to reread it before listening to our episode.
Okay.
And they were hoping that it still holds up. And I think it does.
Yes.
I think that was a
great
one.
Definitely does. Definitely.
And then we got a question from Nathan on Twitter asking us what our top 3 fandoms or interests were outside of Doctor Who. So I've had a bit of time to think about this, so I'll answer first.
Yeah,
and then
you
Chris,
go first. Yeah.
Okay. So my top fandoms outside of Doctor Who, I would have to say probably Mystery Science Theater 3000, both because of the local Minnesota connection, and then just because it was a great show that I really enjoyed growing up. Probably Star Trek, and probably I'd say the Next Gen and Deep Space Nine versions are the ones I'm closest to.
Yeah.
And then for my third one, going way back, probably Masters of the Universe. I'm a big He-Man and She-Ra fan. Okay. And somewhere up there in the top are probably Farscape and the series V with the alien invaders. I really enjoyed those back in the day too. But those are outside of Doctor Who. I think those are the ones that I'm most interested in.
For me, I would say it's Star Trek, but specifically DS9. Which isn't to say that I didn't enjoy Next Gen. It is to say I didn't enjoy Voyager, but maybe once I finish rewatching DS9, I think I'll give Voyager another try, because I think that I'll probably kind of enjoy it more now, and I am looking forward to Discovery whenever that comes out, the new Star Trek series. The other ones it would be kind of like the collected works of Joss Whedon.
Good one.
Yeah, and possibly, there's a few things fighting for that third spot. I would probably say Battlestar Galactica, apart from the last few episodes, which I like to pretend, especially the last episodes, that didn't happen. That's all just a fever dream. That didn't happen. That's how not to end a series.
we might have to disagree on that one, because
Okay.
I did enjoy the ending,
Oh,
but
okay.
it did take me a while to come around to liking it.
Yeah, yeah. I was under the weather when I was watching it, so I think I was sort of probably in the irritable moods as it was. But it's another thing, because like when I was going back to the Wheel of Ice, whilst I was reading that, I was also reading Ready Player One, which I'm greatly enjoying, and I was enjoying that a lot more than the Wheel of Ice. And so I was resenting the Wheel of Ice that I was having to, because of our schedules. I need to sort of make sure that I carried that I'd sort of finished reading it in time, and I wanted to go back to experience Ready Player One, which is a fabulous book, particularly if you like kind of sort of like VR worlds and kind of computing and stuff. It's great. And that's being made into a movie by Steven Spielberg. I can't imagine how he's going to adapt it.
I had kind of a similar experience where I was, I enjoyed the Wheel of Ice. I think more than you did. There was another book series that I was kind of wanting to read, and your mention of Deep Space Nine made me think of it. Have you heard of Star Trek Vanguard at all?
Oh, is that the Peter David one, or is it no?
No, it's Peter David's is, I think, New Frontier.
Okay.
Which is its own thing.
Yeah.
But Vanguard was a series of books, and I want to say there were maybe 8 to 10 in the series or so. But it takes place, so it's basically Deep Space Nine, the series, but if it was set during the original series. So you have a Federation space station. It's Starbase 47, also known as Vanguard. And you have all the events that happen over the 3 to 5 years of the original series play out, but during the same time, what would happen with all those events happening, like the Babel conference, all of that, having it all grounded at a single space station. So it was kind of, I've just started reading the series, but it's set in that time period where you have a lot of like Daedalus class ships and original series ships. So your mention of Star Trek Discovery made me think of that, because it's kind of the same concept. Yeah.
Huh. Oh, cool.
Well, so getting back to Doctor Who, what are we going to be doing? What are we going to be doing next month, Chris?
So next month, I decided to kind of go into the magical world of new adventures and go for an author who is no stranger to the TV these days, either in Doctor Who or in Sherlock. So yeah, we are going to go for St. Anthony's Fire by popular demand. Well, 2 or 3 people. So that is popular demand. Yes. So it's Mark Gatiser's St. Anthony's Fire, which is should be interesting, because that was his second novel after the very successful and much loved Nightshade. So yeah, be interesting to see how that holds up. And also, if you happen to, because this episode is going to be hitting your feeds in sort of mid-July. So the event that I'm going to describe may or may not have happened by this stage, but pretty much every year I go off to the Latitude Festival, which is kind of like a smaller scale of kind of like Glastonbury, with kind of music, arts, poetry, and stuff. And Fandy Newton was there last year just as a punter, so you'll never know who you bump into. And if you were to go there, you may bump into me reading a copy of St. Anthony's Fire. So if in between acts you're seeing somebody sitting up in the sands reading St. Anthony's Fire, do come along and say hello. And it might be that this is the year that I decide each day to go as a different doctor. I have talked about doing that, though it's often more. Yeah, I've got a Tom Baker costume T-shirt, so I might possibly wear that. But anyway, enough wittering. It's St. Anthony's Fire. Enjoy.
exciting. All right.
And hopefully this will go better than the last time I had a physical book, which I was reading, which was Face of the Enemy, when I ended up having to dry it in the bathroom of the local hospital because I spilled water all over it. So I prefer ebooks. Ebooks are easier. You can't destroy them. And they're also less valuable because with this Brexit economy, I have to fund my pension from somewhere. So anyway, all right.
Well, until next month, I've been Matt in Minnesota,
Chris in South London. Happy reading.
Thank you for listening to the all-new Adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. You can contact the show and follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast. Our music is the Doctor Who theme, Swing Jazz version by George C. Music, used with attribution under Creative Commons license. Until next month, happy reading. Have you watched last night's Doctor Who?
Yes.
I just watched that this morning.
What do you think of it?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Yep.
My only slight criticism would be that we kind of saw Bill's storyline before with the whole Danny Pink thing. I feel like this season for Moffat has really been like his greatest hits album.
Yeah.
Where he's kind of returned to themes that have proven popular and kind of done a new twist on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, I kind of hope that he finds a way to preserve Bill, but though I like the idea that she and Heather might spend time in kind of like Cyberman heaven. That would be a nice ending. I still can't quite believe that we're going to have Regeneration next week.
Either that or the Christmas special, but yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to play that out.
I know that they said that they're doing something different, so I don't know quite what that means. But
didn't catch on that Mr. Razor was John Sim right away. It didn't take me as long, to where he pulled the mask off to figure it out, but for a good 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, who is that guy?
Yeah, I was sitting there kind of thinking, who's he? He seems like a very good actor. I wish I saw him more. He's got an interesting face. And I can't remember what line it was that he said. My wife suddenly shouted, "That's John Sim!" I went, oh, of course it would be. So I didn't figure it out.
Yeah, same.
But she's been exposed to enough kind of like bad 80s Anthony Ainley type antics to be kind of like yeah, there's a guy in a strange beard that we've not seen before. He's probably the master in disguise. But I mean, they did a good job. I mean, he looked like an actual person, which is more than often happened with Anthony Ainley's disguises.
Yeah, and it was nice to see that little character trait come back too.
Yes.
The whole disguise thing.
Yeah, but quite why he's bothering. But hey ho, hey ho. Thank you.